What's up, Sticks TV fam? Now we got that official Romney Street story of all the fallen soldiers that was on that You Deal's album cover, Stay Scrap or Die. If you're a person like me that always wondered about the legends that were frequently mentioned in the dark cold lyrics of Pacino, Dino, Killer Skip, and You Deals, then this video is for you. I'm going to be telling you who these legends were, how they was rocking in the streets, and how their lifestyles led to their demise. It took me a while to gather the story, but it's all public information. Throughout the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, Romney Street would be labeled one of the most crime-stricken sections in South Carolina history. Romney Street is about a mile long, beginning near the Cooper River, cutting underneath the Interstate 26 overpasses before crossing King Street and dead ending about mid-city. The origin of Romney Street dates back more than 300 years ago in the 1700s when a colonist built a distillery, which is a place that liquor is manufactured. He constructed a neighborhood similar to and naming it after the Romney neighborhood in London, England. It was supposed to be spelled Romney with a U, but because of the typographical error, someone put an O, so now it's called Romney Street. Romney Street is one street, but to the urban community, the Rum is a section consisting of Simmons Street, King Street, and Romney Street. That's where the abbreviations RSK stood for. But somewhere in the 90s, known savages and cutthroaters came together and formed a group called Romney Street Killers, and these savages lived up to that name. Okay, now the first legend we have is this guy by the name of Fresh P, who rapper Pacino Dino mentioned in that song, Addicted to Murder Part 2, when he said, "My homie Fresh P was found floating in the creek. What a tragedy, it could have been me taking off these ghetto streets." Now, Fresh P was originally from Hester Street. That's a little deeper into the west side. Fresh P was a bona fide hustler who most of the local kids looked up to because he stayed fresh in the best gear like he was from the 70s. Fresh P was the type of guy who made sure the hood and his family was great. He wasn't really no shiesty type of person like the people later in the story because he passed away at an early age before things could get wicked. One night, Fresh P would be making his usual pickups around the west side when he got blue lighted and led the police on a chase. He would eventually crash into the river, and rumor has it that a dirty cop by the name of Gabe would finish him off. Next, we got Lil Freddy, rapper Pacino Dino's little brother, and according to public records, this is where the notorious East Side and West Side beef started. Rumor has it that Lil Freddy was known as a trickster throughout the Charleston City streets, and what I mean by trickster is that Lil Freddy had the gift of gab. He was sort of like that character, the Joker, out that Batman movie. So before you could blink your eyes, Lil Freddy would get you out your merchandise without you feeling played, and even if you did feel played, he didn't care. Unfortunately, according to the Post and Carrier, one late night in December of 2000, 21-year-old Lil Freddy would catch a round to the head on the east side and pass away 3 hours later in the hospital. That would spark a string of get-backs that contributed to one of the bloodiest years on the Charleston Peninsula that left 9 people deceased and 20 people wounded in 4 months. Now, we got Lil E, who was a known stepper. Lil E was the type of person to put that work in. Lil E had that Soulja Slim mentality where he was known to put that steel on anybody and get into broad day rockouts according to public records. Legend has it that Lil E always kept that cape and he wasn't afraid to use it. But unfortunately, one evening, Lil E would get caught lacking. Now, Boozer was one of the most quietest but grimiest of them all. When Boozer was on the scene and you wasn't a savage, your heart wouldn't allow you to hang around Boozer. He was like a wolf. And if you were sheep, you became dinner. According to public records, Boozer would have bodies under his belt, but unfortunately, Boozer lost his life in a high-speed chase. Okay, now Chief, aka Cheesy or B Cheddar, was a certified hustler who everyone showed love to in the neighborhood. Chief was the type of guy, when he came around, the scene would become a party. If you got on Chief's bad side, then Chief would either get on foot or spin blocks until he found you. But one night, a very big rockout would take place at a club, leaving more than 1,000 people wounded, and Chief was one of them. Chief would get help, but the car ended up flipping, and Chief lost his life. Okay, now Juice was like an OG. Even at a young age, he was a bona fide hustler, and mostly all the ladies had loved him. Juice was very strategic with his hustle, but according to public records, Juice was the leader of an organization called B-Mob, and they supplied nearly the entire Charleston. Juice was intending to cut off some of his workers, and one late night, one of his workers would ask for a cigarette, and when Juice turned around, he got backdoored, catching one to the back of the head. A girl would get sentenced to 29 years, and a guy got 33 years. Okay, now Nail was a triple OG. He was the type to call shots and be like a street mentor for the youngsters when it came to street politics. Unfortunately, according to public records, Nail would get caught lacking in the middle of the East Side and West Side beef. Vario was a super triple OG. He would do some time in prison, and while locked up, his brother got caught lacking. Vario would come home with questions, but he wouldn't be home that long before he got drilled. He got drilled a couple of minutes before his welcome home party on Simmons Street. Okay, now Michi Floyd was a notorious driller. He is actually Lil E's big cousin. He was your quiet type of dude, had respect for the locals, and most people would think you were lying when they found out that he was stepping on people from left to right. Being that Michi Floyd was a problem, he would eventually get backdoored. Now, Curly, I personally knew Curly as a youngin', and Curly was actually a funny and loving guy, but Curly had a dark side. Curly was known to be a smack talker, and Curly would rough up a guy if it came to it. Curly was the type to always win in dice games, or he would hit the lotto for $5,000 or $10,000. But unfortunately, Curly would literally get drilled in the same spot Vario got drilled in years before, on Simmons Street, literally. Hack Mob, who Skip frequently mentioned, was a big stepper. He was known to set it off at any given time. According to the Postal Carrier, Hack Mob played a major role in the get-backs between the East Side and West Side, but unfortunately, that would be the cause of his demise. Now, Von Dale was one of the most strategic hustlers there was. From what I know, Von Dale always was by himself. People know Von Dale as a stunner though, who kept nice cars and jewelry. But unfortunately, Von Dale would get backdoored one night. Low Trail, I feel like Low Trail was the frontier of this generation in Charleston. Low Trail would be between 30 and 33 right now, and Low Trail was basically the first youngin' to start packing heat like Tupac off that movie Juice. This is around the time where young guys respected OGs and it was hard to get a scrap. But unfortunately, someone would run down on Low Trail at the age of 15 as he tried to run in a church while service was going on, according to public records. Okay, now Lil Bra was one of the last people to go out that generation. Lil Bra demise came a year later after Lil Trail. Lil Bra was a leader, and he was also another frontier of this generation of steppers. Lil Bra had more hands than he actually had glizzy play, and that's why he was always respected. But unfortunately, that would be the cause of his early demise at the age of 16, according to public records.